Forever and always, I'm always here. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of I'm Always Here, a podcast about Baywatch, for Baywatch fans, by a Baywatch fan. And I'm so happy to welcome you all back. I thought the premiere pilot episode was just such a laugh and such a great time for community, and I think a lot of us really came together, and it's wonderful to share something you're passionate about with other people who are passionate as well. Forgive me right off the bat if you hear some ice clinking around in here. Due to a unexpected and unfortunate venue change, the air circulation in the linen closet I'm currently recording from is not ideal. So my typical warm steaming cup of coffee, where you might hear me sipping and slurping occasionally, is just it's not possible. It's far too hot where I currently am. Apparently. My parents did not agree with me using the office space, as I did not request prior permission to use it as a recording studio, a pseudo recording studio. So we came to what they are calling a compromise, and I'm up here in the old linen closet. So it's working out well. I'm really hoping it adds to the ambiance, and maybe brings out some of these dulcet tones when we're talking about the score of the show, and some of Mitch's more deep voiced scenes and scenarios. So again, forgive me. I'm drinking some iced coffee, and if you hear some rustling or crinkling, in the late 80s, my mother had a fascination with these corn husk shawls. So we have dozens and dozens of these stacked up in here, and it's very hard to even turn my head without bumping into one and crinkling one up. So again, bear with me, and we're going to make the best out of this. And that's exactly what Mitch and the gang do on Baywatch when they get into a sticky situation, and it's usually very, very hot at the beach. So they use their heads, and they remain calm, and they get through it. So that's what we're going to do here. And before we dive too far in, I do want to mention this about the previous podcast, episode 1, that yours truly made a very, very large faux pas. And I want to apologize up front for that. In that I did not introduce myself in the first episode, and that is something that I cannot believe I left out. Since I recorded and released the first episode, I've probably gone back and listened to it well over 130, 140 times, and I know exactly when I noticed this. It was on the re-listen. The 126th re-listen, which is usually when broadcasters have that eureka moment, the light bulb moment, if you will. And I said, "Oh my gosh, Tom, you didn't introduce yourself." So let me do that now. My name is Thomas Boatwater. You're welcome to call me Tom or even Boatwater. Either one is fine with me. My family and in more formal settings, I would go by Thomas. But I want this to be a very loose and relaxed podcast here, and a joining of minds here. So please, by all means, call me Tom in the comment section or on phone calls, or instant messengers, or, all these these newfangled ways of communicating. But yes, either Tom or Boatwater is fine. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, I can't believe his name is Boatwater, given his affinity for Baywatch. And maybe there's something to that. Personally, I've never been on a boat, and I rarely ever go into the water, as I said before. But I do come from a long line of boat builders. It's come down in the family, and hence that's the given name. My name is Boatwater. I know many of you enthusiasts are probably familiar with the SS Balto. And as funny as it sounds, my great-great-grandfather was the shipwright for the Balto. And just, as a brief aside, I think it's important that we all, share a little bit about ourselves. In the late 1800s, my great-great-grandfather, also named Thomas, was commissioned to build a merchant ship named the Balto. And, this was in France, and back in those days, there was a very, very extreme shortage of pine, which most of the world powers were building their merchant ships out of. And being a trailblazer that he was, my great-great-grandfather Thomas said, we have an abundance of pine, and why don't we just use pine to build the boat? Now, most people called him crazy, and most people said, hey, pine will never work. It's not going to work. And they turned out to be correct. The Balto, unceremoniously, sorry, I'm getting a little choked up here, unceremoniously sank before making it out of the bay, they say. And it was, of course, a sapwood like a pine is going to immediately swell, and the joisters and joints. I'm not a woodworker, so forgive me, and please feel free to correct me in the comments. But the joints and all the things that a boat are made out of immediately swelled, and essentially the boat just fell apart. There were no casualties. It was so close to the shore, most of the men were able to swim very, very easily, and some in such shallow water that they were able to walk even back to the shore. And so yes, that is the origin of my family name, as far as we can go back and see. And through the early 1900s, following the as they phrased it, the Balto debacle, the bad Balto, and so forth, we were actually stripped of the name Boatwater. And we're called Boat Wrong for many years, and No Boat, and Boat Sink, and so forth, until the 50s, where my father went to an actual court and got our name changed back to its rightful name, Boatwater. So since then, and surely since I've been born, we've always been the Boatwaters. But since then, we haven't had any any Balto-like trouble, and of course there were no longer any shipbuilders in our family after that incident. So it's not something that we talk about a lot within our family, but it is something that I like to share, and just kind of lend itself to knowing a little bit more about me and where I come from. All right, now that we've got that little history lesson over with, I promise there won't be any homework on that, I promise. And that I've properly introduced myself and hopefully mended a few fences from my faux pas, I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect a little bit on the first episode and give everyone in the community a chance to maybe meet some of their peers. So I'm looking at my YouTube page where I uploaded the first podcast, and I see a wonderful comment. Let me pull it up right here. Sorry, the internet is a little bit spotty up here. It's completely separated from the main part of the house, and the Wi-Fi is at its very limit up here, it seems, as well as the air conditioning. I see a comment here from someone named the DW1142, and I can only imagine what that means. But it says here, it's like I'm running through the sand with Mitch Buchanan. And I want to say a big thank you to Mr. 1142. That's the kind of feelings I'm trying to and hoping to evoke through this spoken word rather than the visual medium of a television show. I'd love for you to feel the spray of the beach and, the salt and the sand. And I guess people make hot dogs and whatnot. I'd like for everybody to get that smell. Yes, so a comment like that I really, really love seeing. And I encourage more of you to leave comments and let me know how this is affecting you and how you feel about Baywatch and about life when you listen to this program here. And beyond that, there was a number of other comments that I received, not publicly via YouTube or Spotify, but in the form of text messages from my extended family, and many of those were not as long, or not along the same lines as DW 1142. Many of those were more like, why are you doing this? Please stop doing this. Didn't we already go through this with the Balto? And, things like that. But I'm not going to take those to heart. I'm going to let those roll off of me like salt water on a surfboard or the hull of a rescue jet ski, something along those lines. So yeah, I'm going to choose to ignore those because I know there's so many of you that really truly do appreciate this program for what it is and what it's going to be. So we're not going to hang up on the negative. So if you are going to leave a comment, I'd love for it to be positive, but I'd prefer it just to be honest. I'm tough. When I feel down and when I feel discouraged, I think about all the trials and tribulations of the lifeguards on Baywatch, and Mitch in particular, and just how he shows courage in the face of adversity like this. So keep them coming, and we're gonna grow in this together. So there's no worries there. And again, just feel free and open. And with that being said, I'm finally, I think, ready to sink our teeth into the pilot episode, and I'm very, very excited about this. I introduced it last time, obviously, but probably need to reintroduce it, as I'm sure there are going to be many, many more listeners, and this may be their first episode. So, Panic at the Pier. We are met with the sunny beach of California. There's some slight introductions to some minor players in this, but I really want to get into the first critical scene of the show. And I'll be providing timestamps for those of you who are going to watch along, which I do recommend, but it's not necessary. I'm perfectly able to paint a picture for you, a landscape, the totality of the scene. So I'm very, very capable and very willing to do that. But I will be providing timestamps. I will. So we are met with two kind of personalized boats. I believe they're called kayaks or some kind of small ocean vessels ripping through the tide on the beach. And as we draw closer, we can see that it's a race, and it's a very pitched race. It's hard to tell who's winning and who's losing and who's falling behind and who's gaining steam as they approach. But as we do come further into focus, we see that Mitch is in the lead. As usual, it's not unexpected, especially for a veteran viewer. But there's also somebody else on his kayak, and I remember the very first time I saw this, I couldn't fathom who that could be, because a 1v2 race is not altogether fair. But as they come crashing into the shore, we see that Mitch is with a small child, and we learn that is his son, Hobie. A character that, quite frankly, I'm not too fond of, and I always thought that Mitch deserved better from his firstborn son. But that's not something we'll get into right now. We'll talk about that much further on down the line as the characters develop. What I also found very, very interesting, and picture me as this is a first-time viewer, the first time I'm seeing this show. I see that Mitch is wearing a bright yellow, ocean shirt, but it has a collar. And so when I was watching this in the late 80s, as I said, 1989 to be exact, I thought that perhaps this was a James Bond situation where Mitch would come out of the water and be dressed for a gala. He's very, very rugged, and he certainly has the looks, and if they were going to eventually cast a new Bond, I certainly think he should, at the very least, get an audition. But that was running through my mind when I first saw this as, this is a very formal shirt for some kind of ocean race, and it was very startling and shocking to me. But as they pull their boats in, we do see that Mitch has won, even with his son in tow. And a very, very beautiful, beautiful woman has lost the race, and she throws out accusations of cheating, and foul play. And again, at first I was like, how can this woman accuse Mitch of cheating? There's not a chance in hell that he would, pardon me, excuse me. There's not a chance in heck that he would ever cheat in anything, much less an athletic feat in the ocean. But it turns out they're just having a good time, and it's more of a friendly competition, as they would say, versus a really pitched race or with any stakes on the line, to be sure. We also find out in this sequence a very, very integral and key piece of information, that Mitch is divorced. And again, it was startling to me watching, but it is true. He is divorced, and he has to take his son to, I guess, go back to his mom, go back with his mother. The visitation time is over. So that's a little bit of just the first scene. And on my, I would get into more of their conversational, the tone and actual words. I plan on introducing some impressions in this. I'm still working those out. I'm workshopping them. But in my current watch through while I'm researching for this, I'm actually watching the German version, the German language version, for a variety of reasons, most pressing, so I can watch this. And if my parents happen to walk by the room, or my babysitter, when my parents aren't here, she happens to, I prefer, and I've really tasked my parents with calling that a supervisorial companion rather than a babysitter. I feel that that's a little bit more appropriate. But if anybody happens to walk past my room, they will think that I am working on my language studies versus watching Baywatch. So it works out for a variety of reasons. Although I do admit it is making it very, very hard to follow the plot thus far. But as we said, so that we can obviously tell that there's probably some romantic interest between Mitch and this beautiful, beautiful woman. Her name escapes me. And in the German version, it's a very, very difficult name to say, Franke, or something along those lines. But that's obviously not the name in the American version. And I will certainly update this in the video description with the correct name. Excuse me for 1 second. Here's some rustling going on here, and I am not moving at all. Oh, once again, it's going to be my sincerest apologies. It appears there is a small rodent of some kind in this linen closet. It appears to have burrowed into the cornhusk ponchos here, and it's appears to be very, very angry and upset. And it is time for me to go and sort this out, and hopefully next weekend, when I record the third episode, we'll have a better resolution to this. But in the meantime, I have got to vacate the premises. So until next time, I'm always here.